Good day, sir. I'm Antivo, first reporter about Laguna Copperplate inscription. What is LCI, or Laguna Copperplate inscription? Laguna Copperplate inscription is the oldest written document in the Philippines, found in Laguna de Bay in 1987. CI was written in Kawi or Old Javanese script. CI was a legal document about the forgiveness of the debt of a certain person. CI was written on April 21, 900 CE. CI was deciphered by Anton Postma. The Laguna Copperplate inscription, discovered near the Laguna de Bay. The oldest written source of the Philippine history is the Laguna Copperplate inscription. That brings an interesting insight into an early Philippine society. Thus, anthropologist Anton Postma described the copperplate as a crumpled, blackened, thin piece of metal, 20 by 30 centimeter plate of copper, fully covered on one side with an inscription in 10 lines of finely written characters. Except for a damaged upper left corner, the plate appeared to be in perfect condition. The character in the LCI resembled Indonesian Indian script, so the LCI was initially thought to have from Indonesia. The LCI script is similar to the early Kawi script, Java, estimated to be in use in Southeast Asia around 10th century. The LCI itself indicates the year it was written, 900 CE. It was a common era. Independent scholar Hector Santos, using Indian and Indonesian ancient calendars, unverified by calculation in astronomy, identified the exact date of the LCI to be 21 April 900, Monday. The language of the LCI is mostly in lingua franca of the Indo-Malaysia area, Old Malay, closely related to Old Tagalog, with some words in Sanskrit or Old Javanese. The authenticity of the essay was assured by paleography experts who stated that the correctness of the script and language employed in it are difficult to imitate or falsity. This is the content of LCI in English translation. Hail Nisaka year 822, month of March, April, according to the astronomer, the fourth day of the dark half of the moon, on Monday, at that time they gathered together with their relative Buka by name. The child of his honor, Namoran, was given a special favor, a document of full acquittal by the chief of commander of Tandun, representing the leader of Paila, Jayadiwa. This means that his honor, Namoran, through the honorable scribe, was totally cleared of a salary-related debt of 1 kati and its suwama. The presence of his honor, the leader of Puliram, Kasumuram, the leader of Paila, representing Ganasakti, his honor, the leader of Binuungan, representing Bersurat, and with his whole family on orders of the chief of Diwata, representing the chief of Mandang, because of his loyalty as a subject slave of the chief. Therefore, all the descendants of his honor Namoran have been cleared of the whole debt that his honor owed the chief of Diwata. This document is issued in case there is someone, however, sometime in the future who will state that the debt is not yet acquitted of his honor. Analysis of the Laguna Copperplate inscription. The LCI is a semi-official document that absolves Namoran and all of his ancestors and descendants of a significant debt. The LCI determined that the Philippine Islands were flourishing well into the age of Southeast Asian trade, which began at 10th century as fresh historical evidence. The LCI makes notable comments along with their jurisdiction, suggesting that the island had established political structures even before the advent of the Spaniards. Whether the LCI was written in Laguna, Bulacan, or east of Manila, it is proof of the early Philippine society writing system, which reflected political and social institutions.
Good day, sir. Good day, classmates. So, my report is all about Chupanchi or Chow Jacua's Chupanchi. So, predating Pigafetta's voyage, Chupanchi, published in 1225, Chow Jacua wrote the Chupanchi, commonly translated as the records of various barbarous nations. So, bago ang paglalakbay ni Pigafetta or before the first Spanish contact her in the Philippines, Chow Jacua wrote the book Chupanchi, that is commonly translated as the records of various barbarous nations. So Chow Jacua is a nobleman and custom inspector in South China, and daghan siya'y kaalaman about trades and traders. So, what is Chupanchi? So, the Chupanchi is a book uh, nga gisulat ni Chow Jakua nga na-publish in the year 1225. So, unsay nakabutang sa Chupanchi? So, in Chupanchi, Chow Jakua referred to a country called Mai. So, what is Mai? So, sa unang panahon is Mai ang tawag ana. But Mai is what we call now the Philippines and its people. So, ang Mai daw, mo na ni ang Pilipinas nga ginatawag nato karon. So, in Mai, according to Chow Jakua, thousands of families are settled together along both banks of creek. So, ang mga tao daw dito kay nagpuyo kilid sa kanal or sa sapa. Tas, enigma po daw ka sa May, makita daw nimo kay ang mga naay mga uh, bronze image of gods or mga ibulto sa mga Diyos-Diyosan. Makita nimo bisan asa sa imong palibot nga wala nabalaan kung asa siya nagikan or nganong nag-exist na siya nga god. The natives wears a sheet of cotton cloth and sarong for their lower part. So, ang mga tao daw or mga Filipinos, they call that natives. So, ang mga Filipinos daw sa unang panahon kay ang ilang upper part is cotton cloth, ang ilang itapis, tas sa lower part is mo na siyang ginatawag og sarong or kanang mo na siya itapis sa lower part. There are following places that belong to Mai. So these are the places. First is the Sansu. Sansu have three islands. Has three islands. Then Pai Puyen, Polilu, Lekentung, Liusin, and Lihan. So just what I said, ang three islands sa Sansu is ang mo ni siyang gitawag nga yun or Kiamayen, Palauyu, and Pakinong. So ang mga natives daw ang mga foreign traders inigmaabot na sila sa Mai kay magpabit ni sila drums para makatch ang attention sa mga traders or mga natives. Then ang mga natives magsakay ni sila og kanang small boats padulong sa barko, maginapsanay ni sila for barter. So for the next is the analysis of the Chinese reference. So the Chinese traders' direct reference to the Philippine island appear between 13th and 15th century. Mai was mentioned for the first time in Chinese records on the arrival of the Arab ship at Canton. So na-mention sa Chinese records ang Philippines first time because of the Arab ship at Canton nga nagdala ni siya og mga goods nga gikan sa Philippines. So the year 982 CE is significant because it was just a little more than century after the Huang Chao massacre in the port of Canton. So the natives would bring this moto. So the year 1900 CE daw kay significant daw siya kay naay nahitabo ani nga massacre sa port of Canton, which is nag-cause ni siya og impact about trades sa kay nalahi ang route sa traders padulong sa Mai. So the natives would bring these Chinese products to the other islands and would be able to barter back the Chinese.
Antonio Pigafetta, First Voyage Around the World by Magellan. Who is Antonio Pigafetta? Antonio Pigafetta, known by the name of Francisco Lombardo or Francisco Antonio Pigafetta. He was born in Vicenza around 1490. He was an Italian scholar and explorer from the Republic of Venice. At isa siya sa kasama ni Magellan at ang trabaho niya ay ilista or i-describe lahat na nakikita or napupuntahan nila since isa siyang journalist. The book of First Voyage Around the World was taken from the chronicles of contemporary voyagers and navigators of the 16th century. Pigafetta's work instantly became a classic that prominent literary men in the William Shakespeare, Michel de Montaigne, Giambattista Vico referred to the book in their interpretation of the New World. Sabi dito, ang gawa ni Antonio Pigafetta agad nang naging isang klasikal na mga kilalang literary men sa kanluran, tulad lamang nila William Shakespeare na isang playwriter, poet, and actor, si Michel de Montaigne, the great philosopher of the France, and Giambattista Vico, Italian philosopher and historian. Si Antonio Pigafetta, isa sa mga kasama ni Magellan patungo sa iba't ibang bansa, siya ang nakasaksi ng mga pangyayari na iyon, at ito ay isa sa mga mahalagang na pag-aralan natin sa panahon ngayon. Pigafetta reported that they reached Samal, now Samar, but Magellan decided to land in another uninhabited island for greater security where they could rest for a few days. After 2 days, March 18, 9 men came to them, showed joy and eagerness in seeing them, and welcomed them with food, drinks, and gifts. On March 31, Magellan ordered the chaplain to preside a mass by the shore. The king sent 2 dead pigs and attended the mass with 2 other kings. Pigafetta explained that Magellan ordered that the cross he brought with nails should be planted in the place because it would be beneficial for the people, because once the Spaniards saw this cross, they would know that they had been in this land and would not cause them troubles. On April 7, Magellan interpreter explained to Raha Humabon that Magellan's king was the emperor of the great empire and that it would be better to make friends to them. Raha Humabon consulted this council and they met in an open space, and the king offered a bit of his blood and also demanded Magellan to do the same. On April 14, Magellan encouraged the king to be a good Christian by burning all of the idols and worship the cross instead. The king of Cebu was then baptized as a Christian. After this, all of the island's inhabitants were all baptized. Pigafetta admitted that they burned a village down for obeying neither the king nor Magellan, and the mass was conducted by the shore every day. On April 26, Magellan died in the battle, and Pigafetta described how Magellan died. The native, perceiving that the bodies of the enemies were protected with armors, so aimed for their legs instead. He was then pierced with a poisoned arrow in his right leg. Magellan was specifically targeted because the native knew that he was Captain General. The king of Cebu had sent help to Magellan, but Magellan instructed him not to join the battle and just stay in Balangay, so that he would see how they fought. The natives have slain all the men except the interpreter and one Serrano who was already wounded. The fleet departed and abandoned Serrano. They left Cebu and continued their journey around the world. Analysis of Pigafetta's Chronicle. It is considered as the earliest detailed documentation. It was believed that Pigafetta's writing account for the purest pre-colonial society. Pigafetta's work is of great importance in the study and writing of Philippine history, and it is also one of the most cited documents by historians who wish to study the pre-colonial Philippines. Lastly, Pigafetta was seen as a credible source for a period which was prior, unchronicled, and undocumented.
Who is Juan de Plasencia? Juan de Plasencia was a Spanish friar of the Franciscan order. He was among the first group of Franciscan missionaries who arrived in the Philippines. So, si Juan de Plasencia is isa ni siya ka Spanish friar or fraile sa Franciscan order. Then, isa sab siya sa napil sa first group sa Franciscan missionaries nga niabot sa Pilipinas. Upon the arrival of the Spaniard in 1521, several Spanish writers wrote about the Filipino during that mid-millennium. So, sa pagdating sa mga Spaniard in 1521, ang mga Spanish writer nasulat sila about sa mga Pilipino sa una during sa mid-millennium. Most of them belonged to religious orders such as the Franciscan missionary Juan de Plasencia. This same priest authored the first book in Archipelago in 1593, Doctrina Christiana. Then most of the kaning mga Spanish nga mga writers nabilong sila sa religious orders such as si Franciscan missionary Juan de Plasencia. Tapos si Plasencia mao ni siya ang author sa first book in Archipelago nga nabuhat sa 1593, mao ang the Doctrina Christiana or the Christian doctrine. Next is Plasencia's Custom of the Tagalog. Plasencia's Custom of the Tagalog was the earliest descriptive written work on early Filipino society. It was written on year 1589 during the Spanish colonial. So mao na siya ang gisulat ni Plasencia nga Custom of Tagalog kaning nasa picture na inyo makita. Nasulat na siya sa year 1589, and this Custom of Tagalog is about ni siya sa kining mga sinaunang Pilipino. Political structure of the early Filipinos. According to Plasencia, the socio-political structure of the early Tagalog was laid by chief or dato who served as war captains. They ruled as many hundred houses, a tribal gathering called barangay. So, ang structure sa mga kining sinaunang mga Pilipinos or sinaunang Tagalog is ang nag-lead sa ila is kining the chief or dato nga mo ang kining pinakamakapangyaran sa ila nga nag-control. Plasencia also identified three castes or classes. The first is the nobles or the maharlika. The second is the commoners or the aliping na mamahay who serve their master. And the third is the slaves called the aliping sagigilar. The person becomes slave by captivity in war or pagkabihag, and by the reason of debt or utang, by inheritance, by purchase, and by committing a crime. For loans, the debtor is condemned to a life of toil. So ang kining nangutang is matulan sila o hangtod sa kining habang buhay nila na pagtrabaho. Borrowers become slave, and after the death of father, the children pay the debt. So ang kadtong mga nangutang mahimo sila nga mga alipin, and after sa pagkamatay nila, ang ilang anak is magbayad gyapon sa ilang mga utang. Next is true marriage. If two persons married of home, one was a maharlika and the other a slave, the children were divided. So if ang duha ka person is married, tapos maharlika ang isa is alipin, so ang children is mabahin sa pagkamaharlika o pagkaalipin.
Philippines. He studied canon and civil law in Spain in 1593 and was called to serve as assistant to the Governor General in the Philippines. In 1598, he proposed and realized the re-establishment of the Audiencia, the highest tribunal. He was in Mexico when he published his experiences, observation in successions de las Islas Filipinas in 1609. He described the native throughout the islands, that they can write excellently with certain character almost like the Greek or Arab. The city of Manila was founded by the Adelanto Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, first governor of the Philippines. The chief of formerly held the other native in subjection now have no power over the new political arrangement under the Spanish. Filipino paid the tribute in kind gold, cloth, cotton, rice, bells, clothes, and what they may have or their harvest. The native or this is have also personal service which they are obligated to render to the Spaniard.
Service rendered by this native is on occasion of war. Work and any other service performed by the native is voluntary and paid mutual agreement. Morga describes some of the Philippine islands that have gold that the Spaniard wanted to extract and sell. He also elaborated on the economic activities in the Philippines and how Spain revenue from the Philippines is low compared to its other colonies. Morgan became an actor in historical era of the beginning of globalization through the Trans-Pacific exchange of goods between Manila and Acapulco. From his writing, we disclose the monetary and labor costs that built this trade to the benefits only of the merchandise and Spanish government. This is a significant source on Philippine history as it describes Philippine life and society at the turn of the 17th century. He worked touched on the political, social, and cultural aspects at the turn of 17th century.
Ang successus de las Islas Pilipinas kay usa ka obserbasyon gihimo ni Antonio Morga. Ang successus de las Islas Pilipinas minana kay events in the Philippine Island o mga nahitabo sa Pilipinas, pero kini nga libro na ay 8 chapters nga taas kayo ang unod is about sa mga lugar nga iyang naobserbahan. Na-mention po niya ang mga dagko nga mga province, ang Luzon, Visayas ug Mindanao. Iyang
panahon iyang naobserbahan kung unsa ang pamaagi sa mga lumad sa pagpadagan sa pagkuha og hustisya. Pag-abot sa mga Espanyol sa Pilipinas na usab ang mga pamalaod na tukod, usab ang mga dagko nga building sama sa mga churches o simbahan. Ang mga lumad nga nagalingkod para mag-judge sa nakasala, wala na power para ana. Ang kada barangay sa una ang leader mao ang kapitan, og kung naay harvest magkuha siya og ihatag sa ikomendero. Mga Pilipino kaniadto kinahanglan maghatag sa ilang kita as tribute o pasalamat sa Espanyol like cloth, gold, rice, bells, fowls o uban pa. Ang mga Espanyol gipatrabaho ang mga Pilipino sa paghimo og barko og gihimo sila nga seafarer, og denhi nagsugod ang binayloanay og mga product sa lain-laing mga bansa. Since ang Pilipinas dato sa mga yamang mineral, ang mga Espanyol na ningkamot nga makakalot og ibaligya sa laing nasod, pero ang tanang trabaho mao ang mga lumad, og dinhipod nagsugod ang Christianization og pag-convert sa mga lumad. Ang Galileon pod mao ang pagbinayloanay og mga product gikan dinhi sa Pilipinas to the other continent. Ang Successus de las Islas Pilipinas ni Antonio de Morgas, isa sa mga importante nga source sa Philippines history. Gi-describe diri kung unsa ang kinabuhi og palibot sa ato mga kababayan sa una. Kini nga libro na ay politika, social o cultural aspect sa mga Pilipino. Tungod ani nakabalot ta kung ngano naatay mga practices nga ginasunod karon, nahimo ang mga barter nga karon naapa gihapon og uban pa nga mga pamaagi sa pagpadayon hangtod karon. Ang successos de las Islas Pilipinas na himo nga salamin sa atong generation karon para makahimnumdum ta kung naunsa o giunsa ang taong mga kababayan sa una.
Francisco de Sande, letter to Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa. Who is Francisco de Sande? Doctor of Law. Francisco de Sande served in a colonial administration of Mexico as a prosecutor. Appointed to succeed Guido de Labazares in governor of the Philippine Islands. He was the third governor and captain general of the Philippines. 1578, he personally commanded an expedition armed to Borneo. On May 23, 1578, Governor Francisco de Sande, who had taken possession of Borneo for Spain, sent off an officer, Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa, to subdue the Holo Islands, instructing him to convert as gently as he can the pirates of that place into peaceful farmers, paying tribute to the Spanish crown. De Sande was the third governor of the Philippines, who had ruled from August 25, 1575 to April 1580. He established the royal city of Nueva Caceres, now known as Naga City. Noong Mayo 23, 1578, si Gobernador Francisco de Sande na sumakop ng Borneo para sa Espanya nagpadala ng isang opisyal na si Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa upang sakupin ang Holo Islands, kung saan inutusan niya na baguhin ng bayad hanggat makakaya niya ang mga pirata sa lugar na iyon upang maging magsasaka na magbibigay ng parangal sa Espanya. Si Sande ang pangatlong gobernador ng Pilipinas na namuno mula sa Agosto 25, 1575 hanggang Abril 1580. Who is Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa? Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa was born of Portuguese parents, parts of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi 1565 expedition. Figueroa rose in the ranks, prospered as he successfully executed campaigns for the Spanish governor. 1578, Governor Sande attacked Brunei and dispatched Captain Figueroa to Jolo. In June 1578, Philippines Governor Sande attacked Brunei. Sande dispatched Captain Figueroa to Jolo. He forced the Jolo Sultan di Pacho Muhammad al-Halim Pangeran Budiman to accept that he was a subject of the Spanish king and to pay Sulusi pearls as a regular tribute. De Figueroa also led a force to Maguindanao, but the Maguindanao Datos retreated to the interior and Figueroa returned to Brunei. In recognition to Figueroa's service, he rewarded with 2 extensive encomiendas, including one on the islands of Panay, which had 4,800 inhabitants. There are 2 principal reasons why Figueroa came to Mindanao. First, the natives should cease to be pirates. The natives should stop committing other cruelties and thief. Order the Indians not to go outside their islands to trade. Seize their vessels except fishing vessels. Seize their artillery and ammunition. Second, the native must become a good and virtuous man. Make them understand that they are ignorant of God our Lord. Order them not to admit any preachers of the doctrine of Muhammad. It is evil and false. Christian alone is good. They were deceived by the preachers of Brunei. He chief be converted of Christianity. Christianity will be practiced without any harm from the chief. Seize their preachers and bring them to me. Burn the houses where the doctrine of Mahoma was preached.